it here and see if this works. It does work. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Shabbat Shalom to all of you. If you can hear me in the social hall, now would be the time for you to come and join us in the sanctuary as we are about to begin our service. For those of you who are online, you may notice that the sanctuary is empty at the moment, pretty close to it, because everybody's still over in the social hall eating dinner, but they're all going to be joining us in just a moment. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu mitzotav v'tzivanu, v'asok b'divrei, v'yitateh b'tzitzit. All righty. All righty. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim shevet achim gam yachad. If you turn in your Siddur to page 128, the second song from the top of the page, what a beautiful day it is today, this Shabbat of peace. Vayafeh hayom Shabbat Shalom. Vayafeh hayom Shabbat Shalom. Vayafeh hayom Shabbat Shalom, Ma Yafeh Hayom. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. Craig, it's all the way toward the wall. There's magic that's going to happen in a second. If you're wondering what I'm looking at, usually we have the lights on back here. If you shut my office door, you'll see the light on. You'll see the switch on the wall. Watch, there's magic. There it is. The stained glass windows are now beautiful and lit up. It's fantastic. It's a team effort to make it work. We're going to continue as we make our way through Kabbalat Shabbat, as we turn to page 130, as we say goodbye to the week and bring ourselves into our proper mood to celebrate this beautiful last Shabbat of this particular month on the English calendar anyway. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina ladonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina ladonai. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, lekadma fana betoda. Naria, naria, letzur yishenu, Bismirot Nerialo, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina Ladonai, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina, Lechu Neranina Ladonai. As we turn to page number 131, at the bottom of the page, Yismechu Hashamayim, let the heavens be happy, V'tagel haaretz, and the earth rejoice, Yiram hayam, and the sea as well, Umelo'o, and all that fills them. Let all of God's creation give thanks for creation itself. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Umelo'o. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Umelo'o. Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, Yismechu hashamayim, V'tagel haaretz. We'll turn in our Siddur to page 132. I know we have a few folks who are visitors and who are new, so just a reminder for the rest of us, but also if you don't know, the book goes from right to left. On each page, you will find Hebrew in the Hebrew letters. You'll find Hebrew in the transliteration, so Hebrew written in English characters, and either next to it or underneath it, you'll find a relatively good translation of the words that are there in the Hebrew. I'm required to say relatively good translation because as a rabbi, I'm required to disagree with the translations of other rabbis because we're just supposed to argue with each other. That's what we do. It's how we learn. And so, Or Zarua Lat Sadiq, at the bottom of page 132, 4 lines from the bottom, Or Zarua Lat Sadiq, light is sown for those who are righteous people, Ul Yishrei Lev Simcha, And for those who are good-hearted or straight-hearted people, they will have happiness. And so if we want light, and if we want happiness, we will be righteous and we'll be good-hearted people. And that's what our words say. Or zarua la tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. 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 Ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. Ul yishrei lev simcha. Lai 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 lai. Or zarua la tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua la tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. If you will turn with me to page 134, we'll read in English from the middle of Psalm 98. Sing praise to Adonai with the lyre and melodious song, with trumpets and blasts of the horn. Raise a shout before Adonai the ruler. Let the sea and all within it thunder, the world and its inhabitants. Let the rivers clap their hands. The mountains sing joyously together at the presence of Adonai. For God is coming to rule the earth. God will rule the world justly and its people with equity. From Psalm 99, we look at the bottom of the psalm, which speaks of God's sovereignty in the heavens and in earth. And the words, the last three lines of the psalm say, Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, exalt Adonai our God, v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, and bow down at God's holy mountain. Ki kadosh Adonai, for Adonai our God is holy. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho. Psalm 29. We say this psalm both in the evening and in the morning on Shabbat. The psalm that we say when we do the Hakafah after the Torah reading in the morning. And we use this psalm to talk about God's power in the universe. And often when we think about God's power in the universe, a lot of people, when I talk to people and talk, what can God do? And they always describe to me a scene from the movie The Ten Commandments. These grand, big, giant things that God does. But sometimes God works in very small ways, and this prayer really talks about that. Earthquakes that shake the entire earth, and yet at the same time, making the flicker of a candle move in great ways and in small ways, and that's what this psalm teaches us. Let's read together in the English on page 136 and 137. A psalm of David. Ascribe to Adonai, O divine beings. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. Bow down to Adonai, majestic in holiness. The voice of Adonai is over the waters. The God of glory thunders, Adonai, over the mighty waters. The voice of Adonai is power. The voice of Adonai is majesty. The voice of Adonai breaks cedars. Adonai shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God makes Lebanon skip like a calf, Sirion like a young wild ox. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calve and strips for his fare. While in God's temple all say glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May God bestow upon God's people well-being. Those words, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom in the Hebrew. Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Lai 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 lai. Did you ever have one of those weeks? Okay, I'll just leave it there. Did you ever have one of those weeks? Yeah. This prayer was written for that reason. Because 500 years ago or so in the city of Tzfat, the Kabbalists, the Jewish mystics in Israel, were looking around their world and they saw that sometimes we have one of those weeks and we're just not ready for Shabbat. Because we're still caught up in that week. And so they put these psalms that we just sang, and then they started writing poetry. And they talked about the concept of putting yourself into prayer. It's not good enough to just say the words that are written on the page, but we're supposed to put ourselves into prayer. And they took that so literally that they would write prayers with their names in it. So Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz, who wrote this particular prayer, put his name in it. You take a look at the first letter of each of the verses. Verse 1, 2, 3, and 4. Shin, Lamed, Mem, He. Shlomo. Verses 5, 6, and 7, and 8. He, Lamed, Vav, Yud, Halevi. His name was Shlomo Halevi. He put himself into the prayer with his name right there, the first letter of each stanza. Why would you do that? To really say, I'm really going to put myself into my prayer. The idea being that if every one of us could write our own prayer, and each verse of the prayer began with one letter of our name, we would find a prayer that maybe spoke to us personally because we were really able to put ourselves into the prayer. Well, apparently Mr. Alkabetz, or I should say Rabbi Alkabetz, he was a better writer than most of us. And so the rabbis of the time said, you know what, he mastered this. We should probably stop doing this idea because he did it better than any of us did, combining in words of Torah and words of Midrash and words of Talmud woven together into this prayer that becomes for us this bridge into Shabbat called Lecha Dodi that we find on page 138 and 139. Yeah, I like that. That's better. There we go. Lecha Dodi likat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabelah. Lecha Dodi likat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabelah. Shamor v'zachor v'dibur echad Hishmi'anu el hamiyuchad Adonai echad U'shemo echad L'shem u'tiferet ve'letchila Lecha Dodi likat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabelah. Lecha Dodi likat kala yalalai 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 pnei Shabbat nekabelah. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha Ki mekor ha'bracha Merosh mikedem Nesucha, Sof Maaseh B'machsheva Tchila, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, Yalalai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela, Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, Yalalai, 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 B'nei Shabbat, Nekabela. Verse number 5. Hitoreri, hitoreri, Kiva ore, kumi uri, 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 shir da baby, kevod Adonai, alayich migla, lecha dodi likat hala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat, nekabela, lecha dodi likat hala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat, nekabela. Will rise as we face the door, as we sing verse number 9, as we welcome in the image of the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom, ateret bala, gam b'simcha u'tzola, toch emunei am segula, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi likat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat, nekabela. Lecha dodi likat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat, nekabela. And since we're all standing greeting the Shabbat bride, turn to the people in front of you, behind you, to your left, to your right, and wish everybody around you Shabbat Shalom. It's so wonderful to see all of you. For those of you who are joining us on TempleShalom.com, and for those of you who are joining us on YouTube, Shabbat Shalom to all of you as well. Wonderful to have you with us virtually. Happy to see you right through that camera in the back of the sanctuary right there. All righty, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, everyone. All righty, now you can sit, or say Shabbat Shalom to another person before you sit. On page 140. Psalm 140, a psalm of Shabbat. It is good on this Shabbat to give thanks to God for all of the gifts that we have in our world. We'll talk about gifts in just a little while. It has to do with the Torah this week. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulizamer leshimcha elyon, ulizamer leshimcha elyon. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, Tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulizamer leshimcha elyon, ulizamer leshimcha elyon. Lahagid baboker chasdecha, ve'emunatecha ba'leilot, alei asor ve'aleina ve'lalei higayon Bechino. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulizamer leshimcha elyon, ulizamer leshimcha elyon. Ki simachtani Adonai b'fo'olecha, v'ma'aseh yadecha arani, magadlu Ma'asecha Adonai me'od, amku machshevotecha. Mizmor shir leyom haShabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai, ulizamer leshimcha elyon, ulizamer leshimcha elyon, ulizamer leshimcha elyon. ולזמר לשמך עליון. We'll turn to page 142. Page 142, sometimes things come in our prayer book from, well, not from biblical sources, but more modern sources. This is from a very, very modern source, this particular song that has become part of our Kabbalat Shabbat. Very, very modern, about the 1670s or the 1680s. For Judaism, that's modern, right? We got stuff that goes back 5,000 years, a couple of hundred years. It's nothing. But these words talk about a Kabbalistic idea, this idea of that on Shabbat, God gives us a second soul. And so we have angels that follow us around, the Talmud teaches, and we have a few angels in the Torah as well. And those angels follow us around, and on Shabbat, because we have a second soul, we need a second angel to protect that second soul. And this speaks of those angels that come and watch over us during Shabbat. We say to those angels, come in peace, enter in peace, bless us in peace. And as Shabbat leaves, you'll depart in peace as well. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Bo'achem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nida Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Hu Nida Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Seidchem Shalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la la la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, la 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 la. Lai 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 lai. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Mimelech Malachei Hamalachim, Hakadosh Baruch Hu. We move into our Mariv service with Chatzi Kaddish, page 144. Yitkada v'yitkada shemei Rabba, Yamad yivrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uvyomechon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala, ba'agala, uv'izman karivim meru, amen. Yehei shmei Rabba mevorach, le'olam olam me'almaya, Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Vishtabach, Vitpa'ar, Vitulam, Vitnaseh, Vitadar, Vitale, Vitalal, Shemei, Vikudisha, Burichu, Le'ilam, in Koberchata, Vishirata, Tushbechata, Venechemata, Damihiran, Be'alma, Vimeru, Amen. We rise, page 146. For Baruch Hu, our call to worship prayer. Lai 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 lai. Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed. We can be seated. As we come to page 149, we give thanks for all of creation as we read at the very, very top of the page together. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars, creator of tide and time, and you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God. And the evening flows. We turn to page 148. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. Lai, 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 lai. El Chai v'Kayam, Tamid Yimloch Aleinu, Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai, Ha'ma'ari Aravim. On page 151, we speak of the words of Torah and the gift of Torah. We'll read together, beginning in the middle of the page. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of abiding love than this holiest of your works? It gives it form. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. We'll turn and we'll join together in the words of Shema, page 153 and 152 and 153. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed Ve'ahavta Et Adonai Elohecha Bechol Levavcha Uvchol Nafshecha Uvchol Me'odecha Ve'hayu Hadvarim Ha'eleh Asher Anochi Mitzavecha Kayom Alevavecha Vishinantam Levanecha Vidibar Tabam Vishivtecha Bevetecha Uvlechtecha Vaderech Uvshochbecha Uvkumecha Ukshartam Leot Al Yadecha V'hayu l'totafot b'neinecha uchtavtam amzuzot beitecha uvisharecha leman tiskeru v'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim lelohechem ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim v'yod lachem Elohim ani Adonai Elohechem. We turn to page 157 and we'll read responsively in the middle of the page. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. And just as our ancestors sang these words on page 158, we sing them as well. Words of great joy as we make our way from spiritual freedom to on our way to spiritual freedom, from spiritual slavery, from our physical bondage into our physical freedom in ancient times. Both of those stories told with this prayer. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha ne'edar b'kodesh, Norah tehilot osefele, Norah tehilot osefele. Malachutecha ra'u vanecha, Mokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam, Ze Eli anu ve'amru, Ze Eli anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai. V'ne'emar ki fada Adonai et Yaakov u'go'alo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai Elohe Israel. We ask God to watch over us through the night and protect our souls as we rest, so that while we sleep we might be protected from enemy and illness and war, from famine and sorrow and wrongdoing, so that God might watch our going out and our coming in, and will spread a shelter of peace over us at all times. We say these words of Hashkivenu, our Jewish lullaby on page 160. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom. The third line of the Hebrew. Ufros aleinu Sukkot shlomecha. The last three lines. Baruch atah Adonai haporei Sukkot shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael ve'al Yerushalayim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu Shalom. God gave Moses a reminder when Moses was up on top of that mountain about the importance of our remembering Shabbat. On page 162, we'll read the words together in English, and then we'll sing them in Hebrew. The people of Israel will keep Shabbat. Observing Shabbat throughout the ages is a covenant for all time. It is a sign for all time between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days Adonai made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day God ceased from work and was refreshed. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. B'ni uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam. Odi le'olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim ve'et ha'aretz. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. Uv'yom hashvi'i Shabbat vayinafash. Shabbat vayinafash. Shabbat vayinafash. Shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam b'rit olam. We come to the Amidah, page 164. We'll all rise. We'll say this zimun, this meditation together, and then we'll join together in the first few paragraphs, and then we'll take our time for our own silent prayers through page 180 and 181. When you finish with your silent prayers, you can all be seated. Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. 166. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu Elohei Avoteinu v'Imoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel Elohei Leah Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim V'Konei HaKol V'Zocher Chaste Avot V'Imahot U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'Neihem L'Ma'an Shemo Be'ahava Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magin Baruch Atah Adonai Magin Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai Mechaye HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia Mashiv HaRuach U'Morid HaGashem Mechakel Chayim Bechesed Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim U'Matir Asurim U'Mekayem Emunato Lishenei Afar Micha Mocha Ba'al Gevurot U'Mido Melach Melech me'mitu mechaye u'matzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman atah lachayot hakol Baruch atah Adonai mechaye hakol atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently through 180 in the Hebrew or 181 in the English. When you're finished with your silent prayer, please be seated. Page 178, a prayer for peace. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech adon lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. If you sing it just a little bit louder, the people who are on that camera back there, the microphone up here will pick you up and they'll all hear you singing. Shalom Ra al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Shalom Ra al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. Tasim Le'olam. We turn our thoughts to those who are in need of healing. We ask for God to bring healing prayers to Brian Zabel, Reuven Ben Sipora, Ellen McIntosh, Faye Green, Malka Bat Hillel Halevi, Yisrael Aharon Ben Reuben Chaim, Harriet Neal, Shmuel Ben Yosef, Chris Kaplan, Gnendel Batsima, Ozzy Rahmani, Beth Maxwell, Avraham Ben Meir, Tova Bat Rasha, David Zimmerman, Sue Laughlin, Lee Rosser, Leilani Elledge, Howard Messerman, Howard Chook, and Gavriel Shalom Ben Yechiel Yonah HaKohen. Are there any other names that anybody has that they'd like to include? We'll just go around the room. We'll start on this side. Names for healing. Thank you. Judy? Thank you. Thank you. Any others on this side? Yes, go ahead. Thank you. Any others? On this side of the room, any names for healing? Thank you. Others? Go ahead. Rick. Thank you. Thank you. Any others on this side of the room? For all those that we've named and for all those in need, may they find healing. Refuat HaNefesh, healing of the soul. Refuat HaGuf, healing of the body. We find the words of Misha Berach, our healing prayer, in the middle of page 371. Begins almost directly there, right in the middle of the page. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mikor HaBracha Leimoteinu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imoteinu Mekor habracha leavoteinu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. This week we read from a Torah portion called Parashat Truma. And Truma means gifts. In the Torah we'll read tomorrow morning that God will say to Moses, tell the Israelites as they're wandering through the desert to bring me gifts, free will offerings of their soul. And here's what I want. Free will offerings of their soul. I'll give you the shopping list. And the shopping list is there because these are the things that we're going to need to build the Mishkan, the tabernacle in the desert, and the Ark of the Covenant, and all of the other things that are going to go inside of the tent. And so what's on the list? Gold, silver, and copper. Blue, purple, and crimson yarn and string. Fine linen. The best olive oil, and the best flour, and the best incense. Be making bread and burning incense on the ark, on the altar. And also to bring the tanned skins of certain animals, of goats and of oxen, and of the tachash, my favorite animal in the Torah, the tachash. Most translations tell you it's a dolphin. It's not a dolphin. Although, what do I know? Maybe it's a dolphin, but I don't think it's a dolphin. The Talmud talks, we need the tanned skins because they're going to be like the waterproof covering on top of the tent so that it doesn't put out the fire on the altar where all of the sacrifices are going to happen. The tachash, by the way, the Talmud describes the tachash. The Midrash does as well, but in the tachash is an animal that is roughly 50 feet long. It's a big animal. Its skin is 6 different colors. And it has one horn in the top of its head. And it only existed, the Talmud says, from the moment we left Egypt until the moment we got into the Promised Land 40 years later. An animal that we needed in the desert, but didn't need it any other time in history, and so it's been hidden from us since then. A large animal, 6 different colored skin, and one horn in the top of its head. It tells me that the tabernacle in the desert was covered with unicorn skin. It's a pretty amazing thing that we believe in unicorns. And it's okay to believe in unicorns because the Talmud says it was a 50-foot animal with 6 different colors of skin and a horn in the top of its head. And we should believe in fanciful things because that's really what truma is, isn't it? Isn't that what gifts are? They're fanciful things. And as we brought these gifts, the Torah tells us that they brought so much that Moses had to tell them to stop bringing gifts because they had more than enough materials to build the tabernacle and all of the furnishings that would go inside. And then it goes on to give us the instructions on building the Ark of the Covenant into which we will place the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments, or as we talked about them a few weeks ago, the 10 sayings or the 10 utterances of God. And then on the top, there would be a golden cover. It's made out of acacia wood, covered on the inside and the outside out of gold. It's about 6 feet long and about 4 or 5 feet wide and 4 or 5 feet tall, made out of wood and covered in gold. It's kind of a heavy object to lift up. And then on the cover, there would be a cover on top made out of pure gold. And it would be fashioned in the form of a rectangle. And as I said to our Torah study group earlier this week, fashion into gold into a rectangle. Gold is soft, you melt it down, you make a rectangle frame. Even I can do that, and I'm terrible at art. I drew a straight line once, it came out as a circle. But then it says this, take this block of gold and using a hammer, not taking another piece of gold, but using a hammer, hammer out 2 giant angels on top of this rectangular piece of gold with their wings outstretched towards each other and their heads bowed down so that their heads might look like they're the edge of a bench and their wings would be a bench where I, God, will dwell among them. This is quite a feat of artistry. It's one thing to make a mold and then pour the gold into the mold and then solder it on to the block of gold that's below it as the cover of this Ark of the Covenant. But to take a hammer and hammer out of this block of gold something that is incredibly beautiful that only a true artist could make. That true artist was a guy by the name of Bezalel. To this day, there's an academy in Jerusalem, an art academy. It's a university and graduate school of art called the Bezalel Academy. And amazing artists have gone through the Bezalel Academy. But you don't have to be Bezalel to create that beautiful piece of art like he and his co-workers did, to pound out with a hammer 2 statues of angels still connected to this block of gold. Because each one of us has some truma to give, a gift to give. It might be gold and silver and copper. It might be a can of food to someone who's hungry. It might be a smile to someone who's having a bad day. It might be any number of things that we can give as a gift to God, to our community, to those around us, or sometimes we need to give a little truma, a little gift to ourselves to lift up our own souls. But just like Bezalel and the other artists that worked with him in this Torah portion to make this beautiful cover for the ark, we can just give our truma. There's a bucket out there. You can toss a couple of cans of food in there, and it's eventually going to get to care and share. I took a barrel there 2 weeks ago that was full. Our congregation fills up barrels often. I recommend that you put some cans in there. They love the food there. They need it to feed hungry people in our community. But then we can take that barrel that's out in the front, that's the plain piece of gold, and then build it into something that's a piece of artistry by volunteering a little time at Care and Share, by finding that little bit of extra money that you were going to go to Starbucks with, but you know what? They're still buying peanut butter and jelly at Care and Share. It's been a big campaign for the last month. And when you go to the store and buy peanut butter and jelly, don't do it. They get a better deal than you do. If you give them cash, they buy a lot more peanut butter and jelly and feed a lot more people with the cash. But we can turn our truma, our gifts that we might have, whether it's money or whether it's objects or whether it's time or whether it's just a smile walking down the street. We can take our truma and elevate it to a level of artistry, like Bezalel and the other artists did, by taking a hammer and pounding out of that block of gold these beautiful sculptures of angels and their wings put out in front of them. If we find our truma, our gifts that we can give, and then we can find a way to pick up our spiritual hammers and use them to shape something even more beautiful than just the gift itself. Well, when the people walked into the Mishkan, and when that Ark of the Covenant would walk before the people as we marched through the desert for 40 years, there was that fiery cloud, but right behind that fiery cloud was the Ark of the Covenant with those angels leading the way. If we can take our spiritual hammers and whatever our truma is, if we can pound out our own angels with our wings facing forward so that God might dwell among us because of the gifts that we share with each other, then we truly understand the meaning of the truma, of the gifts that the Israelites brought in ancient times, and that we should continue to bring now as we take our gifts and make them into something more beautiful. And perhaps we ourselves become the angels that provide place for God to dwell among us. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this indeed be God's will. Amen. We're going to come to the closing prayers of our service, which begin at the bottom of page 586. As we rise for the words of Aleinu, at the very bottom of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, l'teit gedula l'yotzeh bereshit, shelo asanu k'goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahen, v'gohor aleinu kechol hamonam, va'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim, lifnei melech, malchei hamelachim, hakadosh baruch hu, Shehunot Shamayim ve'yoser haaretz u'moshav yekaro b'shamayim ima'a u'shchinatu zo v'dofe meromim hu Eloheinu einod emet malkeinu efes ulato kakatu b'torato yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim ima'a ve'al haaretz mitachat einod in the middle of 590. Ki hamalchut shelcha hi olav timloch bechavod kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed v'ne'emar v'ya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad u'shemo echad u'shemo echad. We can all be seated. In our yard sites this week, we recall the memories of Goldie Listener, Harry Peterman, Ida Goodman, Matthew Newfield, Bruce Silver, Gertrude Morrison, Hannah Shamosh, Ray Hunter, B. Radin, Susan Aubrey, Joe Gordon, Laura Goldenberg, Nathan Starkman, Alice Stepler, Ann White, Gertrude White, Helen Brunswick, John Ferris, Marvin Clayton, Maxine Weiner, David Katz, Elsie Lowenfels, Herman Stein, Lillian Barish, Morty Cohen, Sylvia Block, Barbara Jacobson, Gussie Ackerman, Irvin Adele, Lawrence Green, Ludwig Emmer, and Peggy Mann. And we also note the passing and the burial this morning of David Arnstein. Are there any other yard sites that anyone is observing this week? Thank you. Any others? Yehi zichronam levracha, may their memories be an eternal blessing. We rise as we ask mourners to rise and those whose custom it is to rise with them. Page 598 for Kaddish Yatom. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala uv'zban kariv v'imru amen Yehei shmei rabbah mevorach l'olam u'l'almei almaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata d'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen Yehei shalama rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen Oseh shalom b'mama Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. We can all be seated. Before we bring our service to a close, Denny, do you have our announcements? Denny Elston from our board of directors with a few important announcements for all of us to know. Important things coming up in some really good important stuff coming up just within the next week or two.
These are not just important, these are exciting.
That's right.
Or terrifying, but more exciting.
It's the month of Adar. We're all happy. Because the Talmud says, does anybody know the expression from the Talmud? We're in the middle of Adar, Adar marbim simcha. Right? Okay, I'll translate. When Adar comes, we should increase our happiness because it's the month of Purim.
Is that okay, Elena? Okay.
I'll even move it a little closer.
Nobody has ever, my father said,
Here, we're
Nobody.
gonna move you over in there,
Okay.
right there. How's that?
Nobody has ever said that they couldn't hear me. Thank you for joining us this Erev Shabbat for our service. If you are new or visiting the temple for the first time, Baruch HaBaim, please be sure to introduce yourself and let us welcome you. Sorry, Lena. Thank you, Rabbi Sherwood, for leading us this evening, and thanks to everybody who participated in the service this evening, and thanks to everybody who came to dinner and brought food or ate food. So thank you very much. We want to continue this hopefully monthly. Wonderful seeing all of you who participated. This was our Shabbat across America this evening. Shiva will be held for David Armstein from Sunday, February 26th through Thursday, March 2nd, from 1 to 4 p.m. at David's residence. If you plan on coming, ask later for the address. Our film service continues to be outstanding with its second offering of Farewell, Mr. Hoffman, on Sunday, February 26th. That's this Sunday. The program starts at 4:30 p.m. $10 gets you the film and access to a brief discussion and a wine and cheese reception with your fellow film lovers. We're starting March out with Beatles Shabbat on this Friday, March 3rd. Well, on the next Friday, March 3rd. As in previous years, we are also having Beatles Battle Oneg. Don't know what it is? Ask around and keep an eye out for this weekly email.
Here's what it is.
And register online.
Next Friday night, the entire service, because it's Adar, and we're happy in Adar, and we're leading into the wonderful holiday of Purim, the entire Friday night service, all the prayers are sung to Beatles melodies. So come, you don't want to miss it. It's my favorite service of the year. That's not true. Every week's my favorite service of the year, but it's a good one. And then afterwards, we have a little dessert competition. You make a dessert according to a Beatles theme. In other words, find a Beatles song, and the name of that song is your inspiration for the dessert you bring. There will be prizes for the best tasting and for the best decorated dessert. There are prizes. There are rumors that it's $1 million. I think the rumors aren't true, but there actually are prizes, best decorated and best tasting. So pick any Beatles song, let that be your inspiration for your dessert. It's a really, really fun evening, and it's a great way to lead into the week of Purim. So don't miss it, be a part of it.
I have heard that they're not just prizes, but fabulous prizes.
They're fabulous prizes.
Temple Shalom is hiring an education coordinator and executive director. Contact our current executive director, Elena Raffman, for further information. Daylight savings time begins March 12th. The Ritual Committee.
So don't show up to religious school at the wrong time on March 13th. That's what that's about.
Yeah. The Ritual Committee is looking for a few good folks who'd like to be leaders in the Kabbalat Shabbat services on Friday, April 14th. Individuals and groups would be
Actually,
Go ahead.
You can skip that announcement. We canceled that.
Okay, forget that I ever said that.
Forget that announcement.
So we're not going to contact you.
We're not going to contact anyone.
All right,
No.
never mind. Forget it. Okay, pretend like you never heard that. If you know any temple members who are ill, hospitalized, or suffering from a loss, please contact the temple office so we can be sure to provide encouragement and support. Thanks to all the people who have contributed tonight for the Oneg and that. So the people who brought desserts from the program committee and others. So thank you very, very much, all of you who participated tonight, eating or cooking. Yes?
Monday night,
They
this
didn't
upcoming
put it
Monday
on
night.
here.
Is it? Did we not have it on that sheet?
No,
this
it's not
Monday
on that
night.
sheet. Thank you,
It's
Judy.
going to be a week from Monday, March 2nd or 3rd or whatever day. What day is Monday? The March 43rd. A little sampling of Beatles Shabbat. Oh, on the 6th, there's a little dinner and then the Purim service. We have a Purim spiel, a Purim play with a bunch of our members in it, and we get to hear the Megillah, and we will cheer for Mordecai. That was pathetic. We'll cheer for Mordecai. We'll cheer for Esther. We'll boo Haman. That's what we'll do. It's going to be a great night. You want to be here for the reading of the Megillah, our Purim spiel, dinner. Purim's a fabulous celebration. Beetle Shabbat, huh? A little sample of Beetle Shabbat, huh? All right, so a little sample of Beetle Shabbat. Maybe the Baruch Hu. How about it? Hey, Jews, it's time to pray. Will you stand up and say the Baruch Hu? Remember to let God into your heart. Then you can start the Baruch Hu. That's a little sample of Beetle Shabbat. You definitely want to be here. It's a super, super fun, really fun service to get you in the mood for the upcoming holiday of Purim. So join us for that. But in the meantime, we'll finish our service with a prayer for peace. Oh, say shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please join us for an owning in the back. For those of you who are online with us at templeshalom.com and on YouTube, Shabbat Shalom to all of you as well. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Please join us for our own ad. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru amen. Oh, say Shalom bimromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imeru